Auto for PAR Creative Services, and this is our first hangout when coming to create a standard for our production values across PAR. So whatever is produced at PER or Walk FM, CQR, JYW, XRI, wherever in the company an audio spot is produced, a promo and imager, ultimately we want to be able to have the same, or similar specs and processes and so forth, so that it maintains that continuity and excellence across the board. We all have different ways of doing things, not necessarily the wrong way or a bad way, but we want to be on the same page together. And so hence we have our audio training session. The other thing about this is that for those who are yet familiar with Adobe Audition Creative Cloud, this will hopefully introduce you to some of the nuances and help you to navigate. Izzy is very adept at that. He has also created a production template for sessions for creating spots and concert spots and imaging and that sort of thing that he has provided for each of you doing production. So you'll want to utilize that when mixing your underwriting spots and other material. And so he'll show you exactly how to go through that and do that today during this session. And any questions that you may have. I know there have been questions posed before. We did a survey a while back about what you need to learn. There may be some nuanced differences from you're using Cool Edit, some are using Adobe Audition 1.0, 1.5, or whatever. There are a few differences in Creative Cloud. Essentially, though, they are the same. So it shouldn't be too much of a jump into it if you haven't ventured there yet. Obviously, it takes a little different specs for your computers. We're getting Kyle up to date. I think we have a new computer for him. There at Walk FM. I don't think it's installed yet. Maybe it is. But in any event, if you have questions after that, by all means, shoot them over to Izzy. Hopefully, he'll answer some of those along the way. And without further ado, why don't we go ahead and let Izzy take the helm. Go Z-Man.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Just to kind of illustrate some of the differences between Adobe Audition and CC, I think everybody's kind of familiar with 1.5 or Cool Edit 2.0. Some of the difference of what isn't included is the CD burning. That's no longer a feature on there. Some of the noise generation features aren't there. Multi-tap, dynamic delay, dynamic EQ, they aren't there, but they can be replaced with other settings. The pitch blender and VO coder, that is not there either. Again, that can be kind of replicated elsewhere. I think seeing is the hardest thing. Is like, well, where is it? Where has that been? And those seem to be the ones that are most popular, where people are asking for. Also, it doesn't take WMV or WMA files any longer. Now, some other things have been renamed. Amplify, Fade, it's now called the Volume Envelope. The Pop Click filter is now called the Declicker. The Clip Restoration is the Declipper. The other one's the Declicker. And then the Notch filter is the Dehummer. And the temporary files, it's now under the Media and Disk Cache Preferences. If you want to be able to edit a little bit quicker, what I suggest doing is, if you have an external hard drive, go into that Media and Disk Cache Preferences and select that on the external drive. It really is helpful. It'll make it feel a whole lot quicker. The link that I sent out before kind of highlights a couple of ideas about the sound. It's really kind of about a feel. And let me put on the screen share here, and hopefully everybody can see that. Mark, can everybody see the screen here with Cool Edit up there?
Yep, very good.
Okay, cool. It's a whole. It just kind of like in a nutshell, it's all basically about a feel. And in here is a template that I sent over. It's a commercial template, and it has all of the settings pretty much set up for you. What's really neat about, especially in a contrast from 1.5 to 2.0, is this mixer here. You can do a lot of neat things with this guy here. Every single one of these tracks can have what's known as a rack. So you can have a rack preset here. So when you have your audio, you can put in here, for example, a hard limiter that's, let's say, like -3, and you want to do 1 dB, and you also want to do, I don't know, say some parametric EQ like this. Let's say we would just want to, typically we're at about 85 hertz, especially in the male voice, is where the resonance point is. Bring the Q down a little bit here. That kind of gives you a little bit of presence here, and say, let's say that's all the processing we're going to do on this, for example. We can go to the preset and save that as our voice preset. What I recommend doing is going through each of the voice that you have on staff or that you receive for voiceovers and set up a preset for each one where it sounds good. And then you can go in here and set it up in here. Say we want to do that over here too. We just now go over here to my voice preset. In theory, let's see here. Where did that go? Save effect as rack preset. And let's try that one more time. Oh, it's our voice preset. That's why. All right, let's do this again. So we go over here, and then we go down to our voice preset, and then you can see that's already there. Instead of just an our voice preset, it could be Izzy's preset, Nathan's preset, Mark's preset, whoever's preset, and it's all set up for you. So now all you have to do is just drop the voiceover in there. To get ourselves a voiceover just real quick, let's just open up a new file. For standards, we're doing 44/100 16 bits. Is what we're using and delivering elsewhere. And let's do our script here real quick. The other thing is you want your audio at about -6 is where you want to record it. I'm going to do it a little bit lower on this just so it's not going to blow anybody's eardrums out here, but say, this portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's chocolate-covered caffeine pills, the only calorie-laden non-prescription stimulants specially formulated to keep you up all night. What's really neat now is you can go in here, highlight the selection you want, and you can get your levels wherever you want them to go. And you can specifically highlight a certain section and adjust the audio the way you want to do, which wasn't in the previous versions. This is a really great tool. Another thing is you can kind of fade in and out right here as well. So if you have a music file or something here, or say you want to just soften the intro just a little bit, you can go in there and do that, and it works out nice. So here's your voiceover. Go back into multi-track view. It's a little bit set up differently than it is on my desk here. Let's see here. All right, there we go, to the editor. So you have that person who's in there. You just drop that track in there, and you're ready to go because you already have that preset all set up for that person. You can also do the presets from over here. So here you are on track 1. You can see our voice presets there. And then you have the voice preset there. And then when you play back. This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's chocolate-covered cap. So the other thing that you can do with this is, since you know everybody's going to be at the standard of about -6, we know on average we want to bring it up about 3 dB just to kind of get us to that -3 level. Say we jump it up by 4, then we know that it's going to do a little compression for us. Ed's chocolate-covered caffeine pills. The next thing is say you want to add some music to it, which is what we typically do with the spots. You can go in here, and this portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed. Just kind of drop it down a little bit. The other thing I do is some beat mapping, but for the point of this tutorial, this will do it. And This portion of the show is being brought to you by Edge chocolate-covered caffeine pills, the only calorie-laden non-prescription stimulant specially formulated to keep you up all night. All right, so what's neat about this again is you can just grab in the audio from whoever provides it. You already have the preset set because everybody's going to be sending the audio on average at about -6, and you can get it right to where we need it to be. Typically, I do all the sounds at about -3 when they're here in the mix track. That way you have a little bit of headroom. So with the voiceover, say I want to get it a little louder, I can go up another 3. This portion of the show is being brought to you, and it gives you a little bit extra room to do what you want to do here. The other thing that I have that's set up here is a presence sound effect that's built into this. What I do here is, just so you have an idea, I only process a certain part of the band of the audio that we have in there. In this case, we're only working between 50 and 300 hertz. I take that, I do a little processing on this, and then I add a little bit of reverb. And what this is going to do is add some presence, but you have to map it to this bus here. And what's neat about buses is you can create as many of these as you want, and then you can route the sound to it. So let's see here. On this screen, in order for you to be able to see it, what you're going to want to do is, let's see here. How do we get this to show up? Click on this guy here, I believe. How do you do that on the smaller screen? You make that one. There we go. As you can see with the smaller screen, you have to kind of play with it a little bit to get what you're looking for, just to kind of show you that again. So here's your EQ, and you can change EQ properties right here from the multi-track. And then if you shrink that one, you can make this one larger. If you have a bigger screen, these will all be set up for you. So here you are with your send bus, and you can select which bus you're going to send it to. I labeled this one voiceover and this one presence. So for the voiceover, I'm going to select voiceover, and I'm going to put this at 0. And we'll just listen to this track by itself here. So what we'll do is we'll hit solo by Ed's chocolate-covered caffeine pills. So in here, you can change how much you want to add to it. The only calorie-laden non-prescription stimulant specially formulated to keep you up all night. I found about -20 seems to work, and it will add a lot of nice presence to it without it sounding overmodulated. And then you can do the same thing with the music, which is over here. Track 3, we can just highlight that. We'll solo that out. We'll go over here to our rack preset, and then we will select presence. So that way, your voiceover is on one bus, and then you have this other one over here that can just add presence to the music. And again, -20 seems to be the sweet spot. Here you go. Just remember to do the send up here. And again, it's just going to add a little bit of warmth to each of those. I put this on every single bed that we send out, just because it adds a little bit of extra presence to it. It makes it come through just really nice and sweet. And it seems about -20 is where it is. Another trick that I've done is, as you're listening to the effects, find what you're looking for and then subtract it by a couple of dB, and that seems to work. So if you find something right, just take it and then bring it down a little bit, and that seems to work out well. The next thing that I do is there's a master rack on this, and which I think is another really neat feature with the upgrade with CC. This takes all of them together, and you're able to put what you would like. Now, since we've been keeping the standard, -6 for the voiceover on average, and then we're working at about -3 to -1 for our multi-track, somewhere in there. We know we can bring it up to about -1, and then we're going to hard limit it just a little bit here. So we want it at -1, and this makes sure that the audio is exactly where we want it to be. And then I have some mastering in here. And the mastering effects on this are incredibly powerful. I added a little bit of reverb, and it's kind of like a studio reverb. It's a very short delay, so it kind of adds a little bit of presence. And then you have the exciter. There's a couple different settings in here. I prefer tube. Tape doesn't sound that bad either, but the tube exciter just makes those highs really nice and crisp. And then I do a little EQ boost up here, and that helps with the presence that we add, just to give it a little bit of that almost EQ smile that we're kind of familiar with. And this is pretty much what I do, and then I put another piece of hard limiting here, and then I mix it down. So we will go to, let's see here, File. We're going to export as a multi-track mixdown, and we're going to do the entire session. Let's save this. Let's just put this on the desktop for now. And saving as WAV is the preferable way to go, especially since we have the digital boards. Using an MP3 through a digital board is going to lower the quality substantially. So as much as possible, try to use WAV. Hit OK here. And here's our spot. Again, it's going to take it about -3 for the most part. So what you'll want to do is hard limit it again. I like to go with the picket fence technique. And I'll show you what that means. Is you want the audio wave to look kind of like a nice little picket fence. So let's do here. And we'll do it one more time. You can redo the last command, by the way, with Control R. It's another nice little hotkey. And here's your spot. This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's chocolate-covered caffeine pills. And that, you have your spot there. Again, trying to save it as a wave is definitely the way to go. There's a couple other neat little features you can do too, especially if you're doing a ton of spots at once in there. Say they have 3 little minor pieces and you rendered it down as a bulk piece. You go to generate, let's say silence. Okay, silence is, and I'm still getting used to this because you always keep going to where you were before. To insert silence, you go to edit, you go to insert, you go into silence, and then you can put how much you want into there. So let's say, yeah, that works. I'm going to put a little bit more silence here. So this particular underwriting announcement or promo or whatever it is, you need 3 versions for it. Neat piece in here is the markers. You can go in here, and then you can hit F8, and you can create markers. So you can go in here, F8, create your next set of markers, and you highlight it. So you can go in here, you can change the name of the marker by double-clicking it. We're going to call this spot next week. This week, and this is your today spot, the event. Instead of going in and highlighting it and exporting it, you can just go here, select all those markers right there, and then you can hit Export Audio. You can have a prefix for all of these, so each one starts with spot, and you'll see it has spot. You can also do a postfix for all of this as well. So you can start with 1, and then the next one will be 2, and the next one will be 3. Then what you do, just select where you want it to go, and they are all there. Even though that looked like it was just like instant, you can see they all just popped up right there. It is such a great way of being able to get them all out really quickly and being able to keep those marker titles in there with the name. And that way, when you save the bulk file, you'll be able to, very quickly tell, all right, this is what I need here. Let's see here, as I'm going through my notes here, we went over the bulk part. Oh, media browser. This thing is fantastic. Let's go over, we have a network thing we affectionately call the Z drive. And let's go to, let's say, our music folder. I typically do my workflow with auto on with these, so that way as you're going through each one of these, you can find your beds really quick. So instead of having to opening up a file and trying to experiment, you know, is this the one I want or is this not the one I want? This is a really cool way of being able to go in there and find what you're looking for. That wasn't in the other piece. Let me go through real quick. We went over that. And that's pretty much the most of it. The biggest tool that we have with this new piece is the multi-track editor. This is very, very, very powerful to be able to go in there and to do all those different pieces. Being able to save those rack effects is just a big deal. Oh, this is the other part that's really important. All right, say you have another file that's in here. You can copy and paste all these just by hitting Control-C, Control-V, or if you're on Mac, the Apple-C, Apple-V. You can go in here, and then on the effect rack, you can do a separate effect rack for the clip. So instead of having to go in and add another track or add another bus or do something like that, you can go into the clip itself and add some other presets. So it will have that preset first, and then we'll go over whatever effect you have set up for the voiceover track, which is really helpful if you're in a big project. That way you don't have to create brand new tracks or anything like that. You just click on the clip effect, and bam, it is there. The other thing to note is that you can go between wet and dry, wet being 100% that effect and dry being none. So you can just kind of dial in the effect a little bit. Say this one setup that you have, you know, it sounds good with, say, 80% with one voice and 54% on another one. You can save that in there. The other important thing to go over is the keyboard shortcuts. What I typically do, and I'll email this out, I mean, do what you think makes sense to you. I try to do the keyboard shortcuts on what makes sense with my left hand. Just because that's typically the position I'm in, is I have my left hand on the keyboard, right hand on the mouse. So depending on what handed you are, that will dictate that. But in here in keyboard shortcuts, there's a ton of options that you can do. And those rack presets, if you set it up as a favorite, you can set that up as a keyboard shortcut. So you can select the piece of audio you want and then hit a key, and it will do whatever you have mapped to it. So I like to do mute. So you can go in here to the shortcut and then just hit the key that you want to use for that. There's a conflict for it. That's okay. That's going to do silence. So you can do mute and we can do silence. So there's your silence one. The other one I like to do is delete. I'd like to make that D. Let's see here. I'm going to add another one. D. There you go. Another one I like to do is splitting the track with an E rather than having to right-click on a track. You can do split track instead of having to do Control K. I do E. So that way, as you're in the track, you just hit the letter E, split all the tracks, and rather than having to go up here, click right, and then finding split in there. It makes it so much easier. Having the D is a lot easier because, again, your left hand's here. You don't have to move your hand to go up to the delete button. It makes for very fast editing. Fading out and fading in, you can also set up as a preset. And you can notice they're already up here in the favorites. So we can do, I think you do it through Edit Favorite. And through there. No, you have to go through the keyboard shortcuts, right? Yeah, okay. Where are you? There it is, favorites. So fade in, I do with F, and then fade out, I do with R. So now, as you're in here, you could fade in this one piece of audio. Say there was a pop in the front of it. Just hit F, and it fades it out for you. But, you know, maybe outside of a piece of audio, there was a click or something. So you can highlight that and hit R, and it'll fade out the audio for you. Another really nice feature. And again, that's any type of favorite that you have set up, which can also include those in the rack effects. So you can select something and run a rack effect right there and mix it. In the edit view by itself, you can also use, again, a rack effect. So say you had that other voice preset and you didn't want to drop it into the track. You just wanted this all processed, and so you could use it later on for something. You just select it and hit apply. And that also includes even a small portion. You can have that in there. And you preset. And you're all set and ready to go. That is it. So let me see if I can go out of stop sharing.
Well, Izzy, thank you so much, brother. Very, very informative. Love that. Izzy, as you can see, is very adept at utilizing the tools to accomplish great audio for PAR stations, and you can do that too very easily. Fortunately, we have this recorded. Does anybody have any questions at this time before we close out our session?
No, I think I'll probably go back and look at the video for a couple different spots. But the split track thing, I know it's like a no-brainer, but I just never even thought about that. Instead, I'm always the right click and going through. I do use the hotkeys for all the settings for a lot of them. So for me, because of my first initial, I use the letter N. So when I bring up something up, I'll hit N, and all of a sudden everything pops up. And I think Don hit that by accident one time. He's like, "What?
What I do?"
So, but those things are extremely good, and that's one of the biggest things because it's so tedious, and because we're making something that's 60 or 30 seconds, but yet it takes an hour or 2 hours to put together because you're trying to find just the right thing.
Sure.
These little shortcuts can make all the difference, and over the long haul. So it's great information. Thank you.
One other thing, did you cover this, Izzy? I don't recall when we've mixed down a spot to normalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I must have stepped out during that portion. Well, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is going to be a primer that will be used over and over again by those doing production. And if we can all eventually get to the place where we're following these standards, then we know that whatever is produced at any of the PAR stations will stand head to toe with one another and really create and continue to excel toward excellence for our on-air product. And I'm sure there'll be other instances where we'll get together and share tips and tricks and all that sort of thing. But certainly, if there are any questions at all that you have for Izzy on any of these kinds of techniques and procedures, just give him an email at izzy@spiritfm.com. So thank you very much.
Got it. And I'll send out the notes too afterwards.
Thanks,
Nathan,
guys.
blessing to you, brother.
You as well.
And we'll chat at you soon, I'm sure.
All right. See you guys.
Grace and peace. Bye.